Hey, welcome back to our study this week called What Jesus Did for You. Today we're in Colossians chapter 2. And talking about Jesus circumcised you. Now, what does that mean? Now, the Jews trusted in physical circumcision, right? Abraham received the instruction to be circumcised by God. The Jews believed that the only way to walk before God and to be blameless was to circumcise every male among them, because that's what happened with Abraham. They followed the instructions throughout the ages and were right to do so, and they still follow it today. This was the command of God. Yet, like most rituals, they began to trust in the outward sign. They trusted in their works rather than the God who gave them the work to do. This is obviously going to be contrasted with what Jesus says. When the Gentiles began to come into the church, many of the Jewish believers taught that the men had to be circumcised, or they would not be saved. Perhaps this is one of the false teachings that was attacking the Colossian church. But Paul says no here, that's not true. They were already circumcised by Jesus. This was not done physically, with hands, but spiritually by Christ, by the putting off of the body of flesh. This concept of spiritual circumcision was not something new. It was not something that Jesus brought into the faith. This was something that was always in the idea of circumcision. This concept of spiritual circumcision was not brand new. It was, in fact, men and women could be spiritually circumcised. In Deuteronomy 10:16 and Jeremiah 4:4, the people were called to circumcise their hearts, all the people, thereby removing their evil from them. Jesus came and performed that action on all who are in him. There's nothing good in the flesh, and so Jesus came and cut it off. Paul describes that when the heart circumcision happens, it creates a war between the inner person and the flesh. You see that in Romans 7. And one day the believer will be completely delivered from the flesh, the body of death. That will happen. And so there's this heart circumcision where the heart, which is, the seat of all emotions, thoughts, everything that makes the person a person, is then separated from the body of death, the flesh. And so there's that separation, but then that body of flesh is still with that person. So that separation is there, but then the body of flesh still causes problems. That's where we get the warfare within ourselves. But it's been cut off. And one day they'll be cast aside. And then you'll get a new body, which is a spiritual body, which is completely in line with the soul and with God's will. And so that'll be a completely different experience than what we have now. So he says, you're circumcised in heart already. If you are a follower of Christ, that's already happened. You've already been circumcised in your heart. The self cannot bring about this heart transformation. Can try to do things like that, but it won't succeed. Only Jesus can circumcise the heart. Once it is done, you will delight in his commands in your inner being. This is what Jesus did for you. You would have died because of the evil of your heart, but Jesus came and set you free from the evil desires of your heart. He separated that body of flesh from you, separated those earthly things from the things that are above, which we'll talk about shortly in the book of Colossians, but that's what he did. He separated you from those things and set you free. So when selfishness comes and you're tempted to be selfish, remember that Jesus circumcised your heart. He cut that off. You don't have to do that. You don't. So you've been set free. So come back next time. We'll look at verse 12.